Hey there, Scorpio. This is Seven Scorpion Tarot, and I want to welcome you to tonight's reading. So, first of all, Happy New Year. Welcome to 2025, the year of the nine. We're just getting past the dark moon in Capricorn energy. It is now in Aquarius, and the skies are quiet in your sign right now. I actually don't know of any major transitions coming up for you either. There's a lot going on in your neighboring sign with the South Node moving out of Libra and Black Moon Lilith hanging out there. But let's see what's going on for you. We're going to do a self shadow ego reading and we're just going to kind of roll with it because we're going in blind. We'll start with the self. I hope y'all had a good holiday. Hope you guys got some time off, some time to rest. I know I needed it. I still need a little bit more, quite frankly. And I'm ready. I've got some on the calendar after my on call rotation. After that week is over, I'm checking out for like 10 days. It's going to be nice. And catch up on some stuff. Do a winter cleaning, sort of like a spring cleaning, but spring's not until like June now. So a card for ooh, the self, Mother of Pentacles. This came out in the collective reading. And this was actually my first tarot deck many years ago. Tonight was the first night I just noticed the fawn on the image. Like, I don't think the other, like the Mother of Cups, it's just the swan. Uh, Mother of Wands, it's the snake with the eggs. And Mother of Swords, is it a barn owl? I think it's a barn owl. But I think it's the only one with progeny in it. So in the self, the Queen of Pentacles, the Lady Olena card. So you might be very watchful of materials right now. Something about you don't want to get caught sleeping, caught with your eyes closed. There's that hidden element. And fawns, they camouflage so well. Is there maybe something you're keeping camouflaged? Like not something that's being kept from you, something you're protecting. And that could be any number of things. Like pentacles, the first thing that generally comes to mind would be like finances and whatnot. Are you protecting your literal space? I know that's the vibe for me. Uh, and I'm a millennial, so my Scorpio placement is Pluto. Pluto is in Scorpio for me. And I've seen a lot of articles and whatnot, or at least headlines, that estrangement is on the rise. Is this about protecting your boundaries? Whether it's, family, friends, former partners, whatnot, as you're able. If you're co-parenting, that may not be an option for you. Uh, but she's very watchful, very alert, and that little fawn is PTFO'd for sure. And since this is in the self position, this could be, whatever changes you went through in 2024 or whenever you're seeing this. Are you camouflaging those in a way, like protecting those? I'm all for be your true self, be your authentic self. Not everybody deserves full access to that. And that authentic self may be in a little, baby fawn stage of it needs time to grow. And being alert, being defensive and protective allows that to happen. Because I know, at least in regards to like learning how to live with PTSD, when I was early on in that journey, I went to the wrong people for advice. Like I just made some assumptions like of about people I knew, and they were positive assumptions of like, oh, they're going to be understanding. Well, boy, was I wrong. Which sucks. Uh and that's like, especially when you're like in that raw, vulnerable new stage with a diagnosis like that, and then you go to people who are not equipped to deal with that diagnosis, even if like an example for me was seeking refuge in people in my life who are veterans. I just made this assumption that like, oh, the population, they'll know, like they'll have some familiarity, like they're a place that I can go and belong. And I'm sure there are many people that's true of. Not that was not true of every person I went to. It's complicated. It's really complicated. And some there's a friend of mine who was just very kind, very hands off. Just like, hey, this is what worked for my buddy, and then he moved on with his day. Like, hey, cool. Um, and it was actually really good advice. Like his buddy fishes. That's his thing. I do tarot. Like I found a thing. And that was really good advice. Of a different person I went to said some really insensitive stuff to me. Like You need to get over it. You need to forgive them. Oh boy, without having any context. Uh, and that can really, really throw you off at the beginning of a journey if you're not prepared for just how insensitive some people can be. So I'll start shuffling for the shadow, but it's that was actually like really shocking to me at the beginning of being diagnosed with PTSD was the lack of compassion. And maybe it's because I'm not a veteran. I don't know. Uh, not, you know, any sort of uniformed first responder or anything like that. I'm just a woman. Like maybe that's why it doesn't matter. You know, the plight of women. Uh, oh, here we go. Father of Swords in the shadow. That's some sharp energy too. So the master of the mind. I want to say there might be some wounding still in the shadow in regards to whatever the situation is for you that runs some sort of spectrum with all the colors. 'Cause at least with my example, uh, that rocked me to my core in more ways than one. And having to realize a lot of stuff about myself, uh, the identity things that come with trauma are pretty intense. But there's still that really alert expression, both in the Father of Swords and the Mother of Pentacles. This could also be like a chip on your shoulder from the shadow that you're ready to strike with that sword because of your experiences and whatnot, and you're ready to defend that authentic self, that fawn, with some ruthlessness. While I actually don't want to discourage that, hone thy sword. uh, if you are striking, I would say ensure that that is somewhere where the sword, excuse me, where the sword needs to fall. Uh, because if someone's done something to earn your ire and you are in a safe position to do so, I say give it to them. You know, like if you're in a position where you've been harmed, that can be inner child work. You know, standing up to that person that did you harm, letting the inner child see that of maybe, you know, years of you weren't stood up for. You maybe had some enablers in your family that watched poor behavior play out, uh, and just stood idly by. Or how do I put this? It's something that happened in my family structure. Uh, that like if I was stood up for, it wasn't necessarily in the moment. And I'm dancing around that because I don't know if those side conversations actually happened because I didn't see them. I what I needed when I was a kid was an example, was to see me being stood up for in the moment of harm, not like, oh, I talked to them later, you know? Like, no. Uh and this could play out any number of ways for you. But something in the mind, and man, these eyes are so striking. But you're just like deadlocked on something, or using that radar to watch your environment and just ready to strike. And that could be pretty vicious coming from the shadow. Oh, so I'm shuffling for the ego now. And Father of Swords, like Father of Swords and Mother of Swords in the reverse, um, would be like my emotionally or mentally abusive person cards. Like that's some really gnarly energy. I mean, typically the armchair diagnosis would be the narcissists. Uh, somebody doesn't have to be a narcissist to be like crappy towards you, though. Like, I think we're kind of leaning on that a little hard. There are other things that could be going on that if they're not coming to you for treatment, you know, probably don't want to make a call on that beyond patterns of behavior, you know, because I think all of us, myself included, forget that narcissism has a healthy role in our lives. Uh, and there's like percentile tests or whatever that you can see like where you fall on the scale of like how prevalent that personality trait is in you. When I took that, I was too low. I was too low on the scale. And so that to me says, people pleasing tendencies that I had some work to do in. I need to prioritize myself more. I should take that test again, see where I fall now. Oh, interesting. Okay, some repeat cards. I'm just taking the bottom one because a bunch of them flipped. What's under that? The Chariot. Both of these came out in the collective reading. Huh. So something's connecting those two. So Temperance in the ego persona side, Archangel Michael from the Universal deck, in that depiction Sagittarius energy. So, like presenting or becoming and or becoming more balanced. Because we've got fire and water here on the card. And it's possible to present as tempered even if you're not. It's really hard to maintain that. Like if you're in a position where you're having to put on a mask to like get through an interaction that is likely not a healthy situation. Hmm. Get a card for the underlying energy. Because I know like that flame side could come up really, really strong if I felt like that authentic self that I've been cultivating was threatened in some way. Or even like old patterns from like childhood and whatnot, like being mocked, not being taken seriously. Uh like what's the saying? There's a saying like your parents are your first bullies. Something like that. I know that's not a universal experience, but that was certainly mine. Um I could definitely see me getting real hot real fast about anything like regarding my healing journey and me choosing to do things my way and whatnot. Yeah, I could definitely see that. So that's an area of opportunity for me is how to become tempered even when my temper is getting a little off the rails. And something I brought up too in the collective reading was that the heron is a symbol of Osiris. So something in his myth or myths, the most prominent being the death of Osiris and the resurrection into the underworld and the birth of Horus. Oh, interesting. And this is card 14. I think I think he was cut up into 14 parts. It was either like 13 or 14. Like it was right there in the pocket right there. I wonder if she did that on purpose. Um Interesting. Bear. So, a period of hibernation. Maybe this is what you're coming out of. This is earth energy, and this is the first card in this deck. I mean, it feels like winter hasn't even started yet. Uh, but this could be coming out of hibernation in that, like, you've been doing all of this work to cultivate that authentic self. It's time to show it off and, like, having some confidence that, well, I mean, you can try faking it till you make it. Because it might be hard to be confident, like, right at the jump. But knowing that you might mess up, you know, like you might lash out if somebody gets too close to this little fawn, might go full mama bear, something like that. Um, oh, and this kind of looks like an eye too, like the sun. So more watchfulness. Maybe watching out for that mama bear energy of you have the skills to defend thyself, protect thyself, and know where to put it. Stick them with the pointy end, you know, as needed, and ensure they deserve it. And you are also in a position to do that safely. There's a lot of factors. Because if you are dependent on a person, a situation, like whatever, I feel like that can make it even harder to hold your temper because it, like, if something's not going well and you need change and it's not happening and you're dependent on the situation, that, like, turns up the heat. I don't know. That's just me. A lot to think about. But overall, I hope this helps. I hope it resonates. And if it doesn't, I hope the next one does. Thank you so much.